From the Valley of Shifting Sands by Gilchrist Haas. To the Spirit of David Bowie. Quite a task. Hahaione is the place where I'll begin a poem today. The theme? Perhaps how not to waste one's time on things of little taste that can't be tossed away. What sort of things are these, you ask? But come, let's not be premature. You see, a poem is quite a task, replete with metaphors of mask and arch and aperture. You can't just press it for its gist, or gut it to procure the child. It will not do to slap its wrist, or pound it with your knotted fist, and leave it in the wild. But really, this is not the theme with which I'd hoped to make my start. In fact, I had no plot or scheme, but only this electric ream and little thought of art. Oh yes, and Wordsworth's Peter Bell, from which this stanza is derived. I've taken up its metric gel in hopes that it might scan and spell the thoughts from which this poem shall be contrived. Minding the Grenade. It's somewhat cramped, I must admit. The troops are marching in parade. They need to open up a bit, or stretch their boots to looser fit, while minding the grenade. Don't ask me, it's a metaphor. A poem is filled with pits and traps that undermine the metric floor and channel down into the core through sundry slits and flaps. Grenades may well fill some of them. Each poem contains a bang or two. They help create an element of readerly adrenaline, which helps when thanks are few for hours of blood and toil in verse. Ah, there we go. A line has spilled into a fresh adjacent purse, and thus the poem becomes less terse as abler troops are drilled. For now, though, I say keep it trim. 'Twill take some time to get it right. I owe this poem to Wordsworth's whim, so out of deference to him, I'll try at first to keep divergence slight. Peter Bell. The poem from which this slab's been culled concerns a man named Peter Bell. Cast somewhat in a moral mold, it pleads that souls should not be sold to hell. This churlish man had swiped an ass that would not follow him to doom. The beast was loyal to the last to his dead master. On the grass without a tomb, the corpse had lain since dawn or so. Or wait, 'twas in a river rather. 100 meters down below. He'd fallen from the cliff, I trow, was rolling in the lather when Peter spied him from up top. The beast had steadfastly refused to follow Bell a single clap, would not descend the rocky crop, for which the donkey was abused, as Peter hadn't seen the corpse when first he came across the ass, and, simply and with no remorse, proclaimed the beast his own, and forced, or tried to force, it down the narrow pass. Poet's Pale. But I'll no further with this tale. I think by now you've got the gist. It goes down well with chips and ale. I keep beside my poet's pail a list of things to read and things to drink, including poems I've read before, and vintages that made me think my way to each poetic brink, then back for more. Back, that is, to older poems that made me want to play with verse, and stack up lines to form new homes, in which may live such wordy gnomes as these. A blessed curse is poetry, a fine affliction. But don't allow me to digress. This little piece of Wordsworth fiction, I like it for its clever diction, but as a tale it's quite a mess. And Shelley rather hated it. He wrote a Peter Bell the Third in which he quite berated it and him who had created it. I'll neither challenge nor defend a turd. Calliope's Brow. Okay, that's quite enough preamble. This poem's in a different vein. Although it flows in a similar amble, it will from attempts at moral example refrain. My goal is simply to take the pulse of the 21st century here and now. I cannot predict the end results, for what once held no longer holds in Calliope's brow. Both holds true and retains, I mean. For she was Mnemosyne's kid with Zeus, but the wellspring of her current canteen is Lethe, not the Hippocrene, and her memories somewhat loose. I'll simply stand here at these windows and attempt to snatch up what thoughts fly by. I'll need to develop a net that winnows the gold from the dross in what this wind blows. Not easy, but I'll give it a try. And thus a poem is generated. It does again much that's been undone, collects it and has it refurbished, retraded. I really, however, have nothing slated but 102 canteens of metric fun. Lingua Franca. In this canteen, my only goal's from first to last to seek no theme. I'll drop into this voweled hole and task my tiny metric mole to scheme and plot just how and where to go. I'll task, he'll scheme, he'll plot, I'll write. I'll score the walls from high to low with all we learn, with all we know. O mole, go right, then straight, unfurl this furled fist, or no, unravel this raveled skein of disorderly cognates that turn and twist into arguments they themselves resist as they sprawl themselves out on the plain. They're lesser primates on their own. The Anglo-Saxons snub the Greeks. The Celts are shamed by troops from Rome as Norman French usurp their home, reducing the conquered to bad antiques. O mole, I place my faith in you, for you well know them better than I. I ponder which are false, which true, while you gather them up and make them do. You gather, you make them do, you test and try. Language is loot. All poetry, little mole, is theft. This too shall be true of our little hoard. Already we've canned a handsome heft of trinkets and gems that won't have left us bored when we arrive at the end of the poem, fatigued but enfranchised with language's loot. Perhaps they'll have raised our humble home, but we'll hop back into imperial Rome on a single boot and exhibit our filled canteens on the square. We'll inaugurate an economy on plains we ourselves have scoured bare. Impoverished magistrates will stare at slave and mole grown brawny and eloquent in modern tongues as antiquity crumbles overnight. And we'll pour new words from unlocked bungs as we pause to rest our tired lungs. We'll vanquish the old without a fight. They'll never suspect the source of our wealth, nor guess our lowly origin. So let's cover the tracks we lay with stealth, and drink to each other's luck and health. We need them both. They're equally important. Empirical mole. Enough, we'll slacken our morning stroll to a pace more apt for something lyric. Let's wade experience's jagged shoal with smaller steps than these, my mole empiric. For history, like the poem's a sham, but one that people seldom doubt. And the verity of this tiny clam is superior to the chronicler's scam of peace and rout, of rise and fall, contentment, gore, the sundry crap that fills that tale. For lore is all the same, it's lore, and Nestor soon becomes a boor of Herodotean scale. This little clam's enough for us. It doubtless too is filled with lies, but of the sort that earn our trust with hints of what is good and just in single things of modest size. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving, mole. Let's stop and feast upon these banks. We'll pause to feed this teeming skull, made festive in a metric lull. Let's break our fast and give each other thanks. Precious schlock in memoriam Lou Reed. Jenny repined at 5 years old, "There's nothing happening here at all." Her eyes were dry, her feet were cold. "So happen now," that's what she told the wall. And Lisa, a chaste and pious gal, went mute at In Excelsis Deo, and left behind her sacred cow to take up with a crooning pal her shiny radio. Candy next door picked up those waves, transmitting all that fine, fine music. Like sirens that Ulysses craves, she would have donned its very staves to drench herself and infuse with it. And Stephanie, within a pall of high school absences and tardies, heard Nico sing, slim, blonde, and tall, then left her home and school and all in time to catch tomorrow's parties. They grieve now, 'neath a ticking clock, the passing of that New York mole, who scavenged precious, mislaid schlock, and handed it back from block to block to kids whose lives were saved by rock and roll. Stranger Strands, in memoriam Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Our caravan is loath to stall within your vale of shifting sands. We heed an unremembered call, an anonymity of tall commands. Directives issued years ago, we palmers melodize in bands. Verbs conjugate the bits we know, uncertainty we fain bestow in ifs and ands. We sing of atoms at their dawn, and custards on their final stands. Napoleon as king and pawn, and Jesus in his spindly brawn, all godliness and glands. Our caravan is loath to pause, for there are yet more distant lands, and folks within them tending laws, performing to their gods applause, and bowing to their reprimands. 'Twas good to hear your views upon the good and bad from human hands, and with you greet this newest dawn. But now we must continue on to foreign shores and ever stranger strands. The songs that Molly used to sing. These carols call them now to mind, the songs that Molly used to sing. Let's look at some she left behind. She filled them up with every kind of thing. In this one there's a calling bird, its beaks and talons tied with string. A symbol, say, of life deferred, of dreariness wherein the word cannot take wing. In some there is a somber mirth, suggestive of belated spring, a bastard child of doubtful birth, or promises of challenged worth, a newborn in a sling. And this one is a Yuletide tune that questions who is really king. 3 wise men, 'neath a shackled moon, assembled on a stucco dune where commerce rules. Ka-ching, ka-ching. Her melodies recall each thought to which indelibly they cling. When we are joyful or distraught, the cadence falls, then comes unsought that muted cheer which Molly's songs still bring. As Blake said, "A mood, please, that is less petite. This temper fits me rather tight. To hell with patience, I repeat. As Blake said, some are born to sweet delight." Jim Morrison, he cribbed that line, a bard of slim poetic might. The theft he fancied rather fine, then choked on heroin and wine, which served him right. One starts out with this simple goal, to keep one's meaning nil or slight. Then soon one finds one's on a roll, that is, however strained or droll, one's verse has taken flight. And who knows where the thing will land? Enough, though, let's get off this height. It's better to leave nothing planned beyond the lines on which we stand and what they put within our sight. But then again, can this be all? For is this not poetic blight? Surveyed at tetrametric crawl from off a leaky, drifting yawl? Mole feigned that this were someone else's plight. A tree with roots. To foot poetic destiny, one now and then must scuff one's boots. These woods will get the best of me. How hard we're pressed to find a tree with roots. Perhaps no roots have taken hold, or else their trees are drafting fruits. Between the sundry lines we've scrolled, we've stepped on smashed-up melons rolled by new recruits who wish to introduce some sport to civilize the native brutes they've heard exist through false report, and myths through which they cannot sort. Their history disputes the fact that there was nothing here before they barged in with their loots and filled the page with noise and cheer, and pondered their celestial year, which spins as they rope off the shoots through which they fell into this text, which ere they came lacked figs and newts, though now with figs and newts we're vexed as we await whatever's next. How hard to view this tree through all its roots! Our daily bread. Old Bill walked off in '64, his face a mask of wounded dread. To satisfy his need for lore, he's wandered down into the core, we said. But no one knew just why he left, or what had gotten in his head. He seemed of love and joy bereft, and wore his life as 'twere a heft of gloom and lead. Youths sometimes ventured down to seek the measure of his stately tread. The evidence he left was weak. Each time they thought they heard him speak, 'twas someone else instead. For years they boldly plummeted down veins through which he might have fled. Whatever though he later did, the veins where he himself kept hid. Each New Year's Day we made his bed. He sent us now and then a poem to let us know he wasn't dead. We'd tell old Bill if he came home, his pages filled a hefty tome. We turned them as we broke our daily bread. Finer fits. Our day has left behind its dawn, and here we linger, here we wait. Come on now, Mole, advance a pawn. At present I see nothing on your slate. Ah, that's the problem with this hoard. It's both our freedom and our fate. And nowhere is it for us scored exactly when to clear the board, unload the freight, discard the drab or lifeless bits, inter them in a storage crate. Such questions tax our better wits, and interrupt those finer fits we fain would recreate. Those thicker throes revivify before our season waxes late. It's good that we see eye to eye, for if the meter did defy the motion, we'd be in a strait. For now, it's just this calm abyss we're doldrummed in twixt dearth and spate, concern and boredom, joy and bliss. All art, dear Mole, is simply this, a futile attempt to resist, then acquire the innate. My 5 dreams, or all you have to do is knock. The first dream kept a tiny mouse that scampered round a ticking clock. The scratching much disturbed my spouse, who cried in fear and fled our house in shock. The second one erected heights and crowed a double-meaning cock. Its syntax traced in feints and slights, caprices of libido's flights. It picked her lock. A monkish bard possessed the third atop its solitary rock. His Sunday guests were not deterred. With fire and smoke he forged each word. He spoke like Vulcan Spock. A vast compendium, Dream 4, of ciphers decades out of stock. A fugue of merriment and lore, admixed with trouble, ruth, and gore, to cadences unhinged from Bach. The fifth one peered outside itself to fathom worlds across the block. A voice suggesting cosmic health ignored my paltry mundane wealth and proffered, all you have to do is knock. Cosmic clutch. An Easter egg on which to chew. Perhaps our universe is spare. It promises there's something true, then makes us squint to see it through the glare. First Kepler plumbs the murky fen, then Hubble scrapes the infrarare, beyond the small concerns of men, beyond their dreams, beyond their ken, beyond their care. We scratch our heads and mind it not. The world spins and we all turn grayer, insure our lives against the rot, surmising whether earth be but a single payer, an orphaned whim of deity that God created on a dare. It brought him little gaiety to sport with earthly frailty and biological despair. Or else we're one of many such, with life existing everywhere. He scoffs but doesn't ponder much on pebbles in his cosmic clutch. 6 billion more dependents to declare. Man of straw. His makers held him to the light and fondly clasped his little paw. In soothing tones they calmed his fright. They added eyes and set aright his jaw. He blinked and beamed long ere he spoke, and took in everything he saw. He's rather cute, the little bloke. They gave his chin a little stroke. He squealed in awe. They filled his head with sights and sounds and cogitos on which to draw. They lectured him on freedom's grounds. They told him when to test its bounds and when to hem and haw. They tested this homunculus to see if there was any flaw. The press was rather credulous and deemed this process sedulous of crafting wisdom from the raw. Indeed, his scores are benchmarked now, upheld and codified as law. To question them would cause a row. His legend is a sacred cow. Arise, assume the plow, O man of straw. My horoscope. My horoscope informs me that today I'd better mind my words. Potential shall be thin, not fat, diminished in a pile of flattened thirds. 'Twill be a day to passively put up with flies and minor hurts. No drunken bacchanalian spree, no overweening venery, no chasing skirts. The images today include a crossing pair of blunted swords arranged like Christ upon the rood, who seeks celestial quietude from everlasting fjords. Today's a day for laying low, for changing bulbs and mending cords, for slackening the pace to slow. In prison pines Camus' Merceau, while Hamlet paces creaky boards. I'll neither enter some new trade, nor venture into foreign ports, nor place my malice on parade. I'll not go seeking precious jade. Instead, I'll fill my bags with baser quartz. Herein housed, or some folks within these prints. Some folks here need the finer things, like mynah birds and cambray mints, while others seek to topple kings. Their broken limbs they set in slings and splints. Some folks here limit their desire to what they comprehend through squints. They steer between the dear and dire, and shun whatever's close to fire or makes them wince. Some folks here favor figs and pears, while some prefer the Turkish quince. Though some anticipate life's cares, it falls on others unawares in 5 or 10-year stints. Some folks here fail to catch the gist, are not so good at taking hints. Some need from habits to desist, some simply to unclench their fist. Some cherish quiet utterance, while others cannot shut their mouths. You'll find them all within these prints. You'll find them chastened, clothed, espoused. Their fits and faults are herein housed. I moved here once. I've lived here ever since. So they say, based on Wheel of Fortune's before and after game. You say you're seeing double bed? I'm on the razor's edge of my seat. But cover your iron maidenhead, dear lady, for love is better off dead end street. The world spins rounding up the cost, O Mary, mother of Christmas go round. A Julius Caesar's salad tossed, as stars that have been albacrossed get lost and found. And Chicken Little Richard shouted, "Oh, mother, I think I smell a rat race." Mom, in return to sender, pouted, "Yon Milky Way of God has sprouted, so why the long face to face?" Tonight we'll score some hits the spot. Get out, we'll say, go home, sweet home. Then we'll take our leave them out to rot, and thank God is good we haven't got a name like Sarah Palindrome. But I've had it up to hear me out. I'm blind. I cannot see vous play. Game over, my dead body. Shout. Untie this riddle's knot about. A real loose wheel of fortune, so they say. My natal chart. I paid my $100. They promptly forwarded my natal chart. For months I had been down and dumpy, life a wheeling, rusty, bumpy cart. You need to mind your rising sign. To not do so would not be smart. A winsome maiden most divine named Virgo, I could call her mine. We'd never part. They listed out my planets then, arranged upon the starry mart. Your sun is out in Leo's den. It puts existence in your ken. I felt like Jean-Paul Sartre. Your Jupiter in Gemini suggests that you'll find wit and art to judge with a discerning eye and see life through each by and by. That is to say, through each false start. Now look to the celestial Rhine. From house to house your planets dart. Your moon is lodged at number 9. And on it shines as I refine the words and dreams that fill this human heart. Amid your planetary pumps. It's clear that in the coming months, though opportunity is there, you will find horoscopic stumps amid your planetary pumps. Beware. You're on the cusp of something big, but all could vanish in the air. I'm Virgil, here's your Dante's wig. I'll guide you up the cosmic rig from stair to stair. At times we will with risks collide, but I will help you fly each snare. Perhaps you'll want to run and hide, but don't be worried, trust your guide. I'm why you've paid your fare. On me your happiness depends, or rather on the trust you spare me as we plumb those murky fens to reap your cosmic dividends with no dependence to declare. So come now, do not be alarmed, you've purchased my devoted care. You'll surely be returned unharmed. Your inner beasts will all be charmed. Together we will make a happy pair. There's no there. Gertrude and Alice on a trip stateside. A look came over Madame Stein. But there's no there, she exclaimed. Her words skimmed off the teary brine, which poured into a glass of wine she drained. The year was 1935. Her place of birth was crossed and veined with tubes that ribbed the cluttered hive and kept its residents alive. The skies were stained. Miss Toklas offered her a towel, and Gertrude's torrent slowly waned. A lecture trip to Oakland, Cal, with Alice B., her wife and pal, her precious, fondly named. It sparkled then, a chromed array of childhood memories unchained, of chopping wood and making hay, of youthful dreams and girlish play. They looked at Gertrude, chastened, shamed, who for the storied life she led in gay Paris was broadly famed. There, Miss Stein, they comforted. And Alice Toklas shook her head. They couldn't for their awkward gaffe be blamed. No McNuggets, or no McNuggets. This is my letter to the world that never wrote to me. Emily Dickinson. I opened up each windy vent, my crumpled sword I did unsheathe. The work week boggles our intent, and Saturdays we'd fain repent and breathe. I mused upon this 2-day grant, just what had it rolled up its sleeve. I mustered up a little chant. I will not rage, I will not rant, I'll seek reprieve. My mind was dim, my thoughts were scant. To Friday's cares they still would cleave. I turned to Emily, my aunt, my nurse, my muse of rhymes aslant. I hoped she'd give me leave to borrow an unpotted plant, and see how much I could achieve if long I thought on what it meant, this lined and metered message sent to me to ponder, chew, and teethe. I plunged into a lettered rent. With fitful sighs my chest did heave, and soon I broke into a pant. O Lady of Amherst, I am spent. Upon your no McNuggets I must thieve. Sated Hands. O Mole, I feel it's in our fate, although perhaps not in our plans, an expiry of this our freight, as time removes its weight from sated hands. We're loath to empty out our crate and leave these items to the sands. To think how each and every trait of things we'd make, or recreate from former strands, will vanish from this earthly slate, along with us and our demands. But these thoughts, too, they come too late, and here we putter, here we prate, a pair of also-rans. Our lethargy becomes innate. We watch the cosmos take its stands, and intermix its love and hate, apportioned out to small and great, which gather into cosmic clans. Forgive me, Mole. This sudden spate of sullenness is under bans. Just slap me in my muddled pate. A single slap should set me straight. We'll put it to the fault of wearied glands. The Data Child. Its weary makers yawned and smiled. At last, our darling's natal morn. The doorbell rang, the papers dialed. The rumor of the Data Child was born. They'd had to keep their project mum amid the critics' heaping scorn and shouting children were no sum, that raw statistics could not plumb the human horn. That cornucopia of love, of hope, of symboled rose and thorn. But edicts fell from high above, delivered by a soulless dove. Some called it data porn. Its makers crawled before the press, although their rags were soiled and torn, and clothed corruption's stinking mess. They quickly grabbed a priest to bless the beast and have its foreskin shorn. The cameras readied for the show as deeds were signed and oaths were sworn. The cords were pulled from down below, revealing an absurd tableau. They'd placed their cart before a unicorn. Sabbath, or the sanctity of rest. Give in, or we shall work no more, the builders proffered their request, a plea the priests could not ignore. The Babylonians were sorely pressed. Some chief proposed a 7th day. They laughed, supposing it a jest. No, really, think, a time to play, to spend with loved ones, laugh and pray and clean the nest. Some decades later, Moses sighed, exhaustion heaving from his chest. Dear sir, today we almost died. We cannot take another stride. Just look from east to west. The sojourners of Israel were losing stamina and zest. A seventh day will help them heal, return them to their hope and zeal. So Yahweh to himself confessed. Fast forward to our present time, 24/7, we've regressed. Up Sinai do we climb. To pause is a malicious crime. We've disavowed the sanctity of rest. As Jagger says, or this feeling that we haven't done enough. How heavy, Molly, are these shoes we cannot help but drag and scuff? As heavy as their empty views, which they call news. It isn't news, it's fluff. It seems we're in it, too late now. The game they play is crude and rough. They say that we have caused a row. We've toppled their most sacred cow with just a puff. Yes, we're to blame. To live with this, as Jagger says, we must be tough. They shout at us and hiss, but let's not take it so amiss. The snake casts off its slough. They had us by the neck, no more. They've merely bitten off the scruff and now are spitting out the gore. They've failed to penetrate our core, our style, our gist, our worth, our stuff. So come on now, get up. We'll take a stand and call the papers bluff. You fire the coals, I'll fetch the rake. For it's the only way we'll shake this feeling that we haven't done enough. Ambition's sleuth, or Jim Morrison isn't dead. He's a drunken expat alive and not so well in Paris. On Monday I resume my perch and contract out my faded youth. Within myself I pitch and lurch. Come Friday I begin my search for truth. I chase it down in alleyways, then lose it in a girly booth. I stumble through the neon maze, enveloped in the old malaise of 80 proof. I fondle at Minerva's bust. She's cold as stone, severe, aloof. I mimic her to gain her trust. She's mute and godly, so it's just. And yet it's quite uncouth. The gendarmes took me in last night. They found me soiled in piss and ruth. I kicked the bearded one for spite. He pummeled me. I didn't fight. It seems I lost my 7th tooth. I don't know how I keep my job. They prize me for my Yankee sooth. I once set teenage hearts athrob and played a shaman to the mob. For decades I've escaped ambition's sleuth. The middle way. Dear sir, I've brought you figs to eat. She bowed and offered him a tray. Siddhartha looked up from his feet to spy a maiden, young and sweet and gay. He wondered, was this in his dreams? Then closed his eyes and fed his clay. I know exactly what this means. My tightrope walk between extremes must end today. The nourishment refreshed his veins, and soon dispelled his mind's display of anguish and its knotted skeins, that human world of hopes and pains and plans that go astray. His 5 disciples pulled their hair and gnashed their teeth in mad dismay. This sudden change they couldn't bear. They spat at him a broken prayer and fled, nor did he bid them stay. Siddhartha, having passed his test, looked up and hailed a chirping jay. He'd found, to end his tortured quest, nirvana as enlightened rest. The Buddha rose and claimed the middle way. Buddha breath. It swaddles us, it clears our way, companions us from birth to death. It greets us at the break of day and brings us milk upon a tray, our breath. It buoys us and scuds the foam before us in the worldly bath. It sanctifies our mental dome and guides our tread upon the loam. It minds our path. It gathers in the pure air and blows away the dust, the chaff. It tends to every whim and care, and fans our bluster when we dare. It fills each sigh and laugh. It helps apportion cosmic wit, ensuring us our supple heft. It readies us and makes us fit to love, to share each other's spit, for in the end there is no theft. So when you're feeling down and out upon this road from birth to death, just stop and focus on the spout. Remind yourself without a pout. Take heart, you'll never lose your Buddha breath. North Node in Gemini. This month I've gained some astral sooth at my astrologer's behest. In former lives I was the sleuth, who lived them as a search for truth, a quest. She told me I must scan both nodes, as quondam selves do therein nest. The south and north are antipodes, the moon's contrarian abodes and karmic test. My north node lies in Gemini, my south in Sagittarius. With folks then I am awkward shy, for I've descended from up high. I'm humbled more or less. Among my many former lives was Xuanzang, whom I love the best. In perpetuity he thrives, and minds the wander-lustful drives with which my current life is pressed. I'm less than he, though not the least. I've yet to fathom all the rest, each man, each monkey, bird, and beast. In search of truth I've traveled east, though old Tripitaka got there heading west. The Pathless Land. The monk had tread his many ways through virgin wood or desert sand. He'd also been where knowledge sways and ingenuity displays the grand. And when the monk returned at last, he found himself in hot demand. The questions came on thick and fast about the lands through which he'd passed. He found this bland. He couldn't now recall that much, or much that they would understand. They only wanted such and such. His subtler thoughts they couldn't touch. They saw that he was tanned. He'd wandered off in search of truth and hoped to shake it by the hand. He never found its shack, its booth. It didn't kick him in his tooth, nor did it praise or reprimand. It took him years before he knew he'd met his goal, though not as planned. His countrymen, a fickle crew, they laughed at him but loved him too. They saw he walked in truth, a pathless land. Like Ferdinand, or Taurus Moon. Do not ignore our mounting debt. My sun in Leo knows the tune. It thinks it spies a safety net just up ahead and hopes we'll get there soon. It keeps us ever on the run. Its pace is always highest noon. Its fire's fixed on former fun. We're past the solstice, dearest sun. We're not in June. To other planets I must turn. I'm far too young to feel such doom, nor do I wish to fill an urn. But Leo wants my sun to burn until its final fume. My moon in Taurus questions this. Passivity's our greatest boon. Though Leo takes it much amiss, it contemplates in silent bliss the bluebells in the meadow strewn, and quits attempts to understand the feints the matadors have planned, their tricks that make the damsels swoon. It whiles the time with Ferdinand, who sits in peace beneath my Taurus moon. The Buddha's 5 Remembrances, or the ground on which we stand. 5 sober facts the Buddha told to help us shun conceit and rage and caution us when we grow bold. The first is that we all get old. We age. The second has to do with health. There's no one who is never ill. Subverting joy and fickle wealth, disease creeps in with pointed stealth, a bitter pill. We're loath to speak the third, our death, though from its gaze we cannot shy. Our grim organic aftermath. We rise and fall with every breath because we're born to die. The saddest fact is number 4, the transience of all worldly love. The ones we best and least adore we lose, and then we lose some more. We hope to gain them back above. And karma is our final fact when life has spindled to a strand, collecting every thought and act, a record of our cosmic tact, from life to life, the ground on which we stand. Skillful Means, In Memoriam Leonard Nimoy. The Vulcan, on the verge of death, recalled his life in varied scenes and gazed upon that milky cleft, the light through which our living breath careens. He thought of former suffering, such pain as once had filled his dreams. Maturity was buffering one's sadness in a supple ring of enthymemes. It isn't logical to pine for all that flickers on life's screens, to exit from maternal brine and bellow when they cut our vine, to crave our natal seams. He didn't have to work from scratch. On planet Earth he found some themes, and in its Buddha met his match. In time he learned to detach from cravings as from all extremes. Spock bade goodnight to love and strife, relinquishing his final schemes. His mind with emptiness was rife. He promised as he left this life that in the next he'd spread these skillful means. Adorning our days. Because our time on earth decays, and no one knows just why we're born, we place our promises in lays with which we earnestly our days adorn. We pledge, for instance, not to hate, nor further shall we ever scorn, nor blame, nor otherwise berate our modest home, our simple plate, our prickly thorn. We promise that we won't neglect such goods as fall from plenty's horn. We pledge to them our long respect, not suffering that they'll be wrecked or more than lightly worn. We say we'll cultivate our best and have our worst desires shorn. We promise that we'll take our rest when east has given up to west and sinks beneath the fading corn. We pledge that, though we slipped today, we'll be more mindful in the morn. Despite our errors, come what may, we know that we'll reclaim our way, that middle path from which we're often torn. The Dharma Chests. Some recipes for Spanish fly and mantras that will frighten pests are of the things that herein lie, to please our gods and edify our guests. In this one there's a hidden stage from which to spy illicit trysts, bad jokes that never die but age, and tokens of that mounting rage that soon desists. They're crammed with cheer to hide the must, with valor lined with trick requests, with caveats to quell disgust, and signatures to measure us and help us mind the rests. Dead spirits also lie within, some holding hands, some clenching fists, resembling friends who died in sin, that man who rescued Rin Tin Tin, and crazy Scientologists. O Mole, the varied wonders that have tumbled out of human breasts, the thoughts that wander like a gnat, the words intoning senseless scat, the funny dharmas pent inside these chests. Daimoku, or Our Happy Woe. There's much that lies beyond our ken, and little that we really know, confined within our human pen, and so we'll chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. 10 worlds determine how we grow. We bathe within their interglow. They conjugate our happy woe. And this is why we'll chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Our vices lavish us with scant regard for what they ill bestow. At times we pace, at times we pant. And so the laity shall chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Although we love, we're often sly. We undermine both friend and foe and hoard the goods for which we vie. And that's another reason why we'll chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. The day began, Nichiren woke. This world was filled with blowing snow. 9 others dwindled ere he spoke. The monk threw off his heavy cloak and scribbled down Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. To each his cone. I keep them up here in my hat, some handmade cones to call my own. A cone for this, a cone for that. A cone to show me where I'm at. A cone to make me doubt when I am sure and push me off my stolid throne. Another, like a prickly spur, to kick me into sudden cure, to make me groan whenever I lack confidence or nurture ills to which I'm prone. I keep this one with sparkling tints, providing not so subtle hints that call me to my zone. Some simple ones as well that please by virtue of their gentle tone, and some to sip with morning teas that warm affections when they freeze and melt my ego's heart of stone. I cannot say they'll work for you, I love you, but you're not my clone. So here are some for you to chew. I think you'll like at least a few, and if you don't, oh well, to each his cone. Strategies oblique. Imagine all these happenings as leading up to no event, as motile disconnected strings unraveled from what Chronos brings unmeant. Reverse, back up, but don't collide, or do, which also might work out. I did one time and then I died, but what the hell, at least I tried. Climb up, surmount, repeat. That done, collapse, renege. Or else embrace the status quo, then call your failure something big and summon others. Found a league of stooges, I'll be Mo. Then question what is truly real within this piece of work you've made, and disavow approval's seal. Allow the monster to anneal before they judge it's made the grade. Then smash the tablets on the calves and never let your Aaron speak. Let Israel pick up the halves and find their own familiar paths. Stay tuned for further strategies oblique. Revolution's memes. A poetry in evolution gathers force between the seams, stitching flaws in elocution, scripting quilts of revolution's memes. In this one, see a native root of humble origin step up and give this Slavic pest the boot, or render that French suffix mute to pep things up. And here misnomer elevates, and lo, as substantive now reigns. Behead the predicate, he prates, as proverbs peer from guarded gates. A cognate mops the stains. In this one, words divest themselves entirely of what they meant before we smashed semantic shelves and rearranged in 10s and 12s our syllables of new intent. Yes, this is how it comes to be, prefiguring the world outside, a microcosmic panoply on which it claims monopoly. The world indeed may end, its poems abide. Undead Jane, fragment from an abandoned allegory. In this our realm, the four estates are linked together in a chain. They bear their own specific traits and suffer predetermined fates and pain. The first lies way above the muck. It mans the sun and spills the rain. Its Yahweh is the mighty buck. It really couldn't give a cluck for aught but gain. The second just pretends to rule, while fancying its ransacked brain a bucket to collect the drool of mammon, for its mammon's full, and pour it down the drain. The third estate facilitates for 1 and 2 as Abel's cane. It's drawn from 4, but fills its crates with 1 and 2's best figs and dates, our kingdom's ladder-climbing swain. The fourth is all the rest of us, the ones who till the land and plain. And here she comes, a wraith of dust, our graves cough up in mad disgust. I guess she's ours, let's call her Undead Jane. Token lines. Let my inspiration flow in token lines suggesting rhythm. Robert Hunter. Regard me, mole, as I invoke the muses in triadic nines. Mnemosyne shall first uncloak our hopes and dreams to fall in token lines. Then Euterpe will find the rhymes and with her pipes blow out the smoke. Calliope will narrate times and chime the Vesters' lauds and primes that with them stroke. We'll pressure Clio with a poke to save our history from swines. Dame Thalia will tell a joke as Melpomene's heroes croak and lay to rest their spines. Then Erato will set her minds to capture every lass and bloke and prism lust through love that binds. Terpsichore will cast the mimes to dance our turmoil in love's yoke. Let Polyhymnia provoke the sacred prayers of rustic hinds to gods that thundered ere they broke. And knowledge of our cosmic spoke, Urania let flash in blazing signs. That Someone Cared, poem for Emily. A question that is often aired is why some certain texts survived. The simple fact that someone cared has much to do with how it's fared and thrived. Apparently this one was kept because it sparked renewed debate on why a son of man had wept and rendered older views inept or out of date. By contrast, that one claimed a cure for lethargy and other ills that all of us at times endure because we're humans and impure and lack essential skills. This other one is simply here because the poobah of the day had skimmed it while he drank his beer and found it filled his mind with cheer. 10,000 copies, no delay. Yet still from some we take our cues. This one has been my sacristy. I've knelt upon its numbered pews. E. Dickinson, her simple news that nature told with tender majesty. Form and Fire, or Has It 50. Our Frost, at turning 50, said that he'd be going back to school to crack the nuts inside his head and prove that they were not yet dead. No fool. He knew that there was more to age than petrifying in a mold or yellowing upon some page. Past 50 could be fiery rage, all heat, no cold. How quickly had the decades passed since he was young and they were old. He'd held the modernists aghast with lines of a Horatian cast and English iambs bold. He told himself, what's gone is gone, don't pine for youth, no more of it. I'll stir my formed and frozen brawn by studying my younger spawn. No resting on my laureate. Like Robert, now I'm 10 times 5. I seize on every new desire to burn the dead bees in my hive and bring their ancient queen alive. At half a century, half form, half fire. Alternate ending. A half a century of form and fire. Robert Frost's poem, What 50 Said. When I was young, my teachers were the old. I gave up fire for form till I was cold. I suffered like a metal being cast. I went to school to age to learn the past. Now when I am old, my teachers are the young. What can't be molded must be cracked and sprung. I strain at lessons fit to starve a suture. I go to school to youth to learn the future. The Wild Toccata. The wild toccata that I heard was like no other ever writ. It set off in augmented thirds that sparkled from their staves like birds of wit. Unnerving was this rush of sound, this cacophonic flight of tones. A stable key could not be found, and little meter save a mound of sticks and bones. But then some minims set a pace, while semi-quavers swept the clock. A click of rests announced a race, which led to quite a heated chase like those in J.S. Bach. At length the fugue took full command. Its subject was a tune from Beck. The counter-subject made it stand, a B-side from some one-hit band. It didn't fit, but what the heck? Then suddenly those birds came back. Our earnest fugue did not conclude. The thirds returned into a stack. A long fermata took the flack, and slowly silence once again ensued. Graphic facets, for Shirley and her wily and many-faceted emojis. This first one takes you for a ride and empties out your piggy bank. He leaves you with nor hair nor hide, and he's the one you've always tried to thank. And this one here, without a doubt, is full of Shirley's secret wile. You cannot tell what it's about. All inquiries it puts to rout in single file. You'd best take care when eyeing them, for some of them are dangerous. It's hard at times descrying them, through trickery belying them. Their secrecy is heinous. I almost choked when first I saw this flashing one with neon wings. She clasped my tongue within her claw. She tickled it, then pinched it raw, and now it heals in vocal slings. Just how were these emojis, though, procured? By whose substantial wealth? Did Shirley wrest them from a foe to march before him to and fro? Or are they graphic facets of herself? Along the Cosmic Path, Beethoven's Final String Quartet. That learned ability to gauge just how much is at stake. That sense of how to bring to page one's love and readiness, one's rage and ache. That feeling when we've done our work, that living well's a piece of cake. That love of Dasein's ownmost quirk, that shrugging off each lover's smirk at our mistake. That will to flout catastrophe and reassume within its wake one's vocalized apostrophe and never let it atrophy or turn to mold or break. That fateful query, must it be? The S and must, a hissing snake, insinuating we'll be free when masons caulk eternity and gravitas lays down its rake. That time when we at last renounced that point we felt obliged to make. We drop the ball and let it bounce, then mind our feet that gaily flounce along the cosmic path of give and take. Calliope. Good morning, there's our windowsill. The day begins an empty cup. We listen to the songbird trill. My darling, how you gonna fill it up? Some early morning mindlessness which leads us to our drowsy mop. What say you, Mr. Joe Abyss? We seize it, soften, smile, then kiss our bony sop. It suffers our ingratitude, but such it is with every prop. We prize them when we're in the mood. Neglect, we know, can lead to feud within our cluttered shop. We none the less compose our day, which beckons, take it from the top. Our feet stand firmly on the clay until we glimpse that final ray and mind the curtains as they drop. At night we rest, replete or spare, and dream on each success, each flop. Through exhalations foul and fair, we organize that human air that billows in and out at every stop. What it meant. It meant we'd get there when we could, although we'd suffer angst and grit. It meant we'd do just as we should, despite the fact that something wouldn't fit. It meant at times that we'd give in, at others that we'd never quit. It meant that we'd screw up again, then mouth our ritual amends with mustered wit. It meant we'd often sorely fail, though now and then we'd score a hit. We'd hound to death our fictive grail, then shrink our narrative to scale, an epic to a skit. It meant our truth was like a knot, our hope a narrow hidden slit. We pondered as we stirred our pot that years ago we cared a lot, but now we couldn't give a shit. And while its vapors filled our tent, the universe turned on its spit. We conned it as around it went. And though we guessed at what it meant, we couldn't fathom what we meant to it. To my friend, because we've got this nice word both that marks as ours the time we spend, and hand in hand we keep our oath to follow through the undergrowth each bend, each wrinkle in the other's path, no matter where the bypaths wend. Because I mollify the wrath of those who cannot solve your math or comprehend the riddles in your argument. Because you're ready to defend my every careless, wayward hint, my random sparks from fading flint, my fragile dividend. Because we know just when to rest and give each other time to mend. Because we know when not to jest, when not to hound a solo quest or spoil a solitary trend. Because the list goes on and will until it has no end. Because it will well past the dawn, indeed until we both are gone. Yes, this is why we call each other friend. Splendiferous machines. The poem stands up and takes a breath. It combs its hair, it wears its jeans. It conjures up its magic math and pacifies or puts to death its fiends. Its streets are paved, its gods are hymned, its saints extolled in magazines. Its prisons guard the lines that sinned. Its nurseries are placed upwind of its latrines. A school of wild ontologies erects itself upon its greens, replete with 7 colleges, promoting latest knowledges and manned by tenured deans. It summons on its stage to play its history in varied scenes, the conscripts of semantic clay who work the land and win the day. It bows before assenting queens. And thus the poem commands itself, apportioning its ways and means, and summoning its metric elf to syllabize a sonic shelf, stacked tall with these splendiferous machines. Epistrophe, or feeding the troll. It seems we're part of what we've mined. We are our history, dear mole. Alas, my friend, you're not so blind. For look at all we've seen. Unwind the scroll. Our legacy includes much more than firing clay and mining coal. Each chapter forms a precious drawer of what we've salvaged from the gore of woe and dole, of all that's bad in history as we progress from goal to goal within this aimless mystery and ever-same epistrophe which marks our onward stroll. That's why we keep on cherishing these parts that make or break the whole. Vignettes must keep from perishing, despite the sharp disparaging from carpish critics with no soul, who tell us that we've lost our way in fables that are trite or droll. But let them cackle, let them bray, this history shall have its day. Once more we get in line to feed the troll. Letter to Amy Peruso. Dear Amy, just this one request. I'll make it brief and say it straight. Sit down and give yourself a rest. These heavy tasks with which you're pressed can wait. In fact, they're ours as much as yours. You've shared them, and we've made them speak. Sit down and let us settle scores. Just watch your eagle as it soars from peak to peak, past vultures feeding off decay and scavenging uncommon cores. Wrap up your trouble and dismay, and let us put them both away. We'll be your bureau drawers. Enacting godly, godless plots with graceful wit and actions tactful, we'll magnify the brightest spots and volley barbs and fire shots with honed precision most impactful. So lay thee down and have a nap, and give your brain deserved pause. We'll shame the fools and spring each trap, and tell them they must cut their crap. Your dear friends, Andy Jones and Gilchrist Haas. Oblique Strategies in 40 Cantos. An inaudible gong. Until volition comes to a halt, we've got this bunch of strategies for mending every flaw and fault that undergird our gay gestalt of pleas and lies and prolonged queries, of laughter that often leads to ridicule and causes one man to hang from a rafter, another to flee, leaving nothing after but traces of fuel and memories in the heads of others, which intrigue but fade before very long, then re-emerge in other men's druthers, or else from the lips of their lisping lovers to brush an inaudible gong. Yes, strategy's strange and strategy's strong. As volition keeps going on and on, we pick them from out of a gleaming throng. We examine them first so as not to choose wrong. Sometimes we trade a king for a pawn. Some are tight-lipped, while others leak. Some are new and some are antique. Some boast quite a bit, though this one's meek. See that one dive off a dizzying peak. Behold them all, these strategies oblique. The finest lists. There ain't no need to make a list, for strategies don't work that way. Indeed, they oftener resist us as we clasp them in our fists of clay, although it cannot be denied that lists indeed are of a type of strategy that's often plied when all the others have been tried or aren't yet ripe. Ben Franklin and Jay Gatsby, too, were fond of lists and penned a few. The virtues in the former's view could help us better grasp the true when numbered in their queue. And order was his very bane, with resolution on its heels. For wouldn't an untidy brain on firm decisions place some strain and turn resolve to broken wheels? The latter listed aim by aim some goals for mind and for physique, foreshadowing, as readers claim, his future in its daisy chain. The finest lists are always most oblique. Horace in a hearse. Precisely for this reason, then, there isn't just one place to start in bringing them into our ken. For, as I've said, there's no top 10 in art or action. A comely quote to put into the quotable Haas, for would-be bards to learn by rote, or strike an epigraphic note to win applause from some creative writing prof who's found me on the internet and noted that I'm standing off from verse and print, at which I scoff. The net's a better bet, for print is on the wane, it seems, and books of poetry don't sell. Just look at all those yellow reams collecting dust on musty themes. The Hippocrane's an empty well. Some sorcerer has placed a curse on poems that aren't melodied. The sun has set on printed verse. They've hauled off Horace in a hearse. In this life all my poems shall go unfeed. Muzzled pup. Yes, mostly they elude our clutch, extracting them in retrospect from spite and mundane such and such, we baste and blame ourselves for much neglect. How couldn't we have spied this thing, so unassuming, does it speak? We seize it, bind its broken wing, and wrap solicitation's sling around its beak. That's what we do, we shut it up, and make of it a silly game, like bingo or ganip-ganap. We pacify the muzzled pup. Don't worry, kids, it's tame. Voila! The strategy is gone, and once again we grasp at straws. The king has gobbled up each pawn. It's time to mow the checkered lawn. We turn to Bach or Plato's laws for inspiration, cheer, and grist. To what the muzzled pup agrees, we'll reinforce our shaky gist, or veil its flaws with antique mist. But these, of course, are also strategies. Ophelia disguised as Sam I Am, or skirting the periphery. But look, I haven't yet begun. I'm skirting the periphery and catching at each ready pun. Ophelia, get thee to a nunnery. Which makes no sense, but there it is. I'm just expanding out a bit by muddying false clarities and springing proud temerities that prison wit. The routine seems to go like this. I introduce some latest thought. It wanders off in search of bliss. Then soon the cantos gone amiss. The form for which I've fought is tighter than the sense conveyed. A balance has been unachieved. The poem, alas, is poorly made, because some thought has boldly strayed beyond the lines through which it breathed. Ophelia told her boyfriend, "Scram!" and tossed her bodice in the creek. She said, "You're not for me, dear Ham," then left disguised as Sam I Am. The players found Bill's ending somewhat weak. Obliquity. And then there are the minor ways, the obvious, the understood. One maximizes holidays. One looks up to the skies and prays for good. One leaves work early for a change and sets his mind to other things. One heads off to the putting range. One contemplates how much is strange that fortune brings. You might call these the things we do, the strategies that get us by, the strategies that see us through, that help us breathe and crawl and chew and laugh and love and cry. You'll say that these are not oblique because they're things we do each day. They do not move us to a peak or offer secrets through some leak within creation's passageway. But here's a fact for scribes and bards. Obliquity is everywhere. It's all in how you read the cards. Our strategies are in the shards of turtle shells that fall from human care. Cloned affairs. At times it's good to work alone and then to gather into pairs. At first it held a single drone, but now my life's a chord of cloned affairs. I met my current semblable one time while strolling back from Rome. To love we were amenable. The air is quite commendable within our dome. Our strategies will intersect, not up, then split and recombine to unpredictable effect. It's rather pointless to inspect which ones are hers and which are mine. And then there are the ones that come about by virtue of the pair. Our kids, for instance, they are some. They scratch and wail, they bang a drum, cacophony is in the air. At times I try to bring it back into myself where it began, before I felt an inner lack and spied across this empty crack another one to bridge the gaping span. Our fumbled plays. It's often good to shift our gaze to trivia of lesser weight, that passing thought, that minor phase, those musings that our fumbled plays create, to choices that were less than great, conceits that never garnered praise, lost doodlings of uncertain date, that faded ere that basement crate was set ablaze, to tidbits that were left on trays, and harbingers that barged in late, to primaries that fled the grays, to gaffes that earned the boos and yays that rang inside our pate. to likenesses that don't equate, but open yet another maze where aspiration doesn't wait, and inquiry does not abate, as folks flesh out their fertile clays, and clarify their means and ways for strengthening their infant state, and rendering their past innate. And meanwhile, as our thoughts rephrase, we fumble and we stumble through to fate. The act. The most subversive one of all's the strategy we call the act. It doesn't matter where luck falls or who has got the biggest balls. In fact, one can't predict when it will flash, take hold and rearrange one's life, reducing best-laid plans to ash, and throwing keepsakes in the trash, and making strife of all that comforted before and seemed to be a part of us. No one predicted sudden war of elements within our store that once did clothe and guard us. But suddenly we must destroy, must smash, must tear the idols down. Our former love is sham decoy, and all besides destruction, ploy for incubating false renown. And so we on the sudden smash, and then we reincorporate the bits into a tender stash we'll not sell out for fame or cash. The act is lord of how we will create. The worlds to which we might belong. We don't know how it came to us. Did some lone star or ancient tribe intend for it to one day claim us, while half suspecting it would maim us? Describe the world to which this might belong. A souvenir? Yes, and a herald. 10,000 generations strong, embodying all right and wrong. 'Tis quite a world to which this might belong. It's got no flaws besides this single stitch, which must be pulled to keep it taut. Its purpose much beleaguers thought. What sort of world to which this might belong? A mystery. It causes joy, it causes fright. Can we reject its ministry? It isn't of our history. Is there a world in which this might belong? And is it false or true? We'll use it now to bang our gong, and leave to artists to construe such landscapes which it puts in view. Alas, the worlds to which this might belong! Giant steps, or always underway. We're always taking giant steps. Indeed, right now we're underway. They guide us through those heights and depths and distances we on our maps display. At times they lead us far astray on ever stranger flights and trips. They help us stumble and sashay from Eden out to old Cathay on boundless ships. Returning, we begin new laps and train to strike another way. This time we'll earn applause and claps by springing cold oppression's traps to dawn a brighter day. When Lilliputians as he lay bound Gulliver with cords and straps, he didn't sink into dismay, nor did he think to curse or pray. Instead he mused amid the slaps from countless sceptered 6-inch chaps. What steps have led me here, I pray? Regret set in at times, perhaps, but still he never let them lapse, those steps that through the shadows of his clay. Remember quiet nights. Remember all those quiet nights that added up to nothing much. No thunder echoed from the heights to muffle lovers' febrile flights of touch. Recall such evenings strolling by as caused our metaphors to mix, those blended hues that mollify severities that multiply in logic's bricks. And think on sunsets fading fast we hardly noticed ere they left. Already of the future past, we didn't mourn what wouldn't last. We didn't feel bereft. And recollect the silhouettes that drowsed upon emerging dusk. Day's fingers plucked in pirouettes, arpeggios upon its frets. The grain threw off its bodiced husk. Yes, call to mind the crepuscules waylaying memory in slights, igniting slow through finer fuels the fire of dead conceits and rules. Remember them, remember quiet nights. Poet's Pelf. It seems that you've been weathering some tempest that has caused dismay. But take it from a veteran. Alas, 'twill all be better in a day. In this life nothing's ever set. God made us not of stone but clay. And though I see you frown and fret, I'm telling you 'twill all be better in a day. And Lucifer, before his fall, beheld the welkin lined with gray. I'll take advantage of this squall to carve Inferno, then 'twill all be better in a day. And Emily, inside her room, looked out to clouds that weren't gay. Although they glower death and doom, the coffins crack with April's bloom. 'Twould all be better in a day. Indeed, you've told me this yourself. Here's back at you in roundelay. It's simply honest poet's pelf, delivered by my metric elf. Good friend, 'twill all be better in a day. Synesthesia. Mix up the senses, start with sight, and, like Picasso, place a nose where odors can be gleaned in flight, and pupils stoop and duck like frightened crows. Then take the cone that funnels sound, unwind and flatten taut like skin. Caress it till it's full and round, erect like Venus on her mound. Then beat a din. Which brings us to the flap of taste. We'll stretch it up to lick the eye. An optic salivary paste will sweeten sight and slacken haste. Let's suck the sockets dry. And now the dual valves of smell will vacuum clean the lapping tongue. The mouth has reeked for quite a spell. Olfactory is quick to tell, and fumigates from nose to lung. At long last we arrive at touch, and with our thumb massage the ear. We'll cool off in its tactile hutch, and cease to ponder over much the pulse, the throb of everything we hear. An End in Art, or the Unenclosed World. Some strategies exist for when we cannot seem to make a start. I borrowed this one from a friend. It works for folks who seek an end in art. It has to do with modeling. You take the nearest thing around, a broken bottle or a string, a brat that suffered coddling, an unknown sound. In fact, just now I've done the same. I've taken scraps of the mundane and placed them here inside this frame to end a line, provide a name, or build to a refrain. And then to make them all cohere within a pleasing bricolage that functions as a broken mirror or prism into which we peer to recognize an altar image, we have the child avoid the glass while picking up a blunted shard. He tapes the string, then whisks the mass at squirrels bouncing in the grass. The unenclosed world hums beyond his yard. Taming the rhizome. For some it's good to mechanize whatever's idiosyncratic. Herein a big decision lies, to tame or not to tame the rhizomatic. That's sort of what I've done in here. Poetic thought can grow and grow. It needs some form to make it clear and curb excess. Some blade or shear to clip and mow the parts that look or smell like waste, have none but passing interest, or fail at once to please the taste, or seem contrived, made up, debased, or cannot be assessed. Deleuze glanced over at Foucault and said, "Michel, where is the root? My book is quite a mess, you know. I've lost my way in mire and woe, and fathom neither trunk nor shoot." "Mon cher, your plight is rather plain. I can't discern your episteme. You need to discipline and train the genii within your brain, those products of your scattered REM. In the eyes and angled L's, or like riffs from Adrian Belew. We're always pondering what's best in sky above, on earth below. Each guess we make is second guessed, and truly we are never blessed to know. At times our loss is most complete, the loss at which we find ourselves in pondering our own defeat and finding memory replete with broken shelves. And that is why the random serves to guide us when we've lost our way. Enlivened by its jolts and swerves that spark reactivated nerves, we then resume our play with confidence and certainty. Those phantoms of our make-believe that grant us opportunity and guide us through eternity, or otherwise till death's reprieve. So when you don't know what to do, seek guidance from the turtle shells, from planet paths that run askew like rifts from Adrian Ballou, from corners in the eyes and angled L's. Immaculate consistency. Immaculate consistency, achievable but rare indeed in both collective history and solitary minstrelsy. No creed or conjured episteme can grant that perfect, unexpected hum we've entered from directions slant, forsaking some recanted cant gone deaf and dumb to truth and cosmic savoir-faire. Unmanufactured faith and trust in self and selves will get us there, concentric rings of binding care that will not turn to rust. Our comfort is a plenitude that has no need of boost or change. Its walls are with conviction strewed. We've no desire to fret or feud, or deem each other rapt or strange. Like everything, it has to end, our cadence of enraptured wit. At first a solipsistic trend, we seized it, passed it friend to friend. We found consistency immaculate. Retrograde 1. Go down below, begin again. Don't start up here, but at the bottom. No need for well temperament or base 10. Multiple stabs at how, where, when? I got 'em. Strategies on many fronts with no divine apology. Atemporal cosmology. Suppose things happen all at once. Chronology. So many ways to begin with fun. We wipe ourselves off and turn about. We emerge from some decentered spout. Another way to get things done. Let's work from the inside out. An acquisition begins with theft. Creation tidies up all waste. At birth we are of death bereft. Chinese can be written from right to left. Order, I guess, is a matter of taste. Does the assonance jar? We'll make it pure. If the line's too long, get the shears, chop, chop. For poetry ain't no sinecure. A novel strategy, to be sure. We read from the bottom and write our way to the top. Retrograde 2. We read from the bottom and write our way to the top. A novel strategy, to be sure. For poetry ain't no sinecure. If the line's too long, get the shears, chop, chop. Does the assonance jar? We'll make it pure. Order, I guess, is a matter of taste. Chinese can be written from right to left. At birth we are of death bereft. Creation tidies up all waste, and acquisition begins with theft. Let's work from the inside out, another way to get things done. We emerge from some decentered spout. We wipe ourselves off and turn about. So many ways to begin with fun. Chronology. Suppose things happen all at once. Atemporal cosmology with no defined apology. Strategies on many fronts? I got 'em. Multiple stabs at how, where, when? No need for well temperament or base 10. Don't start up here, but at the bottom. Go down below. Begin again. Why we're here. Don't break the silence. Let it be. All strivings dwindle and recede. Let effort seem unmannerly. Non-strategy's a strategy indeed. Don't chase away the waning noise, but let it simply come to rest. They'll soon be fast asleep, the boys, and tucked away their worldly toys inside some chest. And never mind the whistling flap we seldom make a mention of, when day beats hard upon our cap, and edicts gather on our lap. We'll turn attention off. We will not even punctuate enough to riot into sound. A period will demonstrate the hush of all that's meek and great behind the sun's diurnal round. So don't be bothered by the lull, don't be afraid or think it queer. We're simply turning on a pole that can't be moved, that no one stole. Don't break the silence, that is why we're here. Cascades that pour through thought and language like a simile that's come undone when ego grabs an open mic, but evil id steps up to strike or stun the ear in its credulity for prim and proper word and phrase that mask both fun and cruelty, maintaining stage duality of clouds and rays in which the weather's all that counts because the other didn't sell. Though as for that, it was announced. We offered it, but no one pounced. So it returned to hell. We'll haul it up again some day. Perhaps it waits its latter day. It couldn't come to speech just then. We placed it back into its pen. We'll air it out this Saturday. But never mind, cascades go on and happen even as we speak. We're so much blinded by our dawn, we seldom notice as they spawn on tongues that roll our phrases cheek to cheek. Your you of now. You've only got one single you, and I can't say just why that's so. Humanity twists forward through a forward threading threaded screw. I know because I've been here for a while. So get to know your you of now. The other yous you have on file are figments of your fancy's guile that fill your brow. Your you of old, your yester you, implores you with his feigned regrets. Ignore him. He'll just make you blue. I think he wants a buck or two to help him pay his debts. Your future perfect, you will certainly have been a hit from some odd sempiternal view that would look great if it were true, or if some godhead sanctioned it. But never mind these phantom yous, your you of now is all that's sure. The others are not there to choose. The past and future are a ruse. You will not be because you never were. As Robert Hunter said, Shakedown Poem. It happens here, it happens there, a never-ending slew of its. It hardly seems to compass care, a bricolage you'll have to share in bits. You thought it added to a whole, but here it is, a mess of parts. We can't distinguish branch from bole, or dead ends veering from the goal, or fits from starts. Event with no priority is disconnected from event with no posteriority. The random has seniority, despite our best intent. But that is how it is in art, despite old sooth of sages dead. It cobbles up as part on part, like trinkets at a Southwark mart, where Don and Marlowe bought their bread. They're here assembled on my cart, a restless, hopeful motley spread. Though some are dull, a few are smart. Don't tell me this poem ain't got no heart. You just gotta poke around, as Hunter said. In open rhyme. Let's say the intonation's off. There's much that we can do to cope. For pit is not the same as trough, and hack's a relative of cough. A mope will better serve for melancholic, jerk for bastards often meet, inebriate for alcoholic. Children do not play, they frolic, or they bleat. A metaphoric friend of wine. We're talking here specific words. More often, though, they intertwine, and only in conjunction shine like stacks of minor thirds. An argument can come to naught, although all else is kept alive, through tone that's either slack or taut, depending how it's rigged or wrought, or fashioned through its gist and jive. Some say that all there is tone, that in abstracto thought's a crime. Without it, meaning turns to stone, or calcifies as gnomic bone, though bone itself returns in open rhyme. Vestibule. Intention is inscrutable more often than we'd care to know. Reality is mutable. To this fact is imputable the woe attending each and every art that sets in when we stall or thud. A wheel is broken on our cart. We need a strategy to chart us out of mud, to reinterpret our mistake as satisfying best intent and clinching what was long at stake, accepting glitches for the sake of what we made and meant. To reconfigure error's trap as leading to a vestibule that wasn't present on our map, in which we transmute gold from crap, or snow mane from a lowly mule. And that is how we work things out. It often goes like this in life. Misgiving or a nagging doubt confounds us. Then we turn about to wrestle satisfaction from our strife. Context and fine fortuity, or the whole of which we're part. This thing you love's too tight or long and leads to someone's awkward cough. Could be the situation's wrong, the context, the Zusammenhang, is off. Perhaps it needs a cooler air, a richer soil, a better friend. Perhaps it's deafened from the blare of noisy neighbors on its square at either end. Could be we're all a bit like this and suffer incongruity. Our lives are constantly amiss. We think that elsewhere all's bliss and fine fortuity. So transplantation is a choice for us and for our cherished toys. We hope they'll find their inner voice, and when they do, that they'll rejoice in claiming sudden grace and poise. Surroundings matter much, it seems, in life and letters as in art, determining the stuff of dreams and buttressing our enthymemes, encompassing the whole of which we are part. Avis artisanal and grace. Another useful strategy is to know just when to shut your trap. Your works will beg you, if you please, desist from oral sophistries. A nap will surely do your mouth some good. Please be our silent engineer. You've made us well, that's understood. And all is fine beneath the hood. Give 'em a peer if you're so sure they need some proof that what you're at is not a waste. It's in good form to look aloof and not to play the gabbing goof. Give 'em a little taste of ease, artisanal, and grace. That graceful confidence and poise that comes from having built this place. That look of ease upon your face, suggesting all that love employs in fashioning this other world that runs without much further talk. The dome is set, the gate is purled, the flag's been raised aloft, unfurled. So zip it shut, go out and take a walk. Those moods on Sunday afternoons. Those moods on Sunday afternoons, emerging from a well within, inspired by half-remembered tunes, or memory of youth that swoons in sin, or thoughts of some old self-neglect in which we compromised ourselves through rash impulses left unchecked, that caused possessions to be wrecked, or placed on shelves because we couldn't throw them out. You know the moods I mean, I'm sure. There's much that they can be about. They flow through more than just one spout, and rarely are they pure. Nor can they in a single breath and all at once be analyzed. They well from much too deep a depth to pin the thief within the theft. They're left unthought and unsurmised for us to feel them all the more. Perhaps such moods are strategies to keep alive our chastened core, alive for poetry and lore, alive for acts of love and love that frees. Practice and amenity. We nurture many practices. At times we need to sort them out before we can get back to biz amid repotted cactuses of doubt and redirected ivy's hope. Said otherwise, we make distinct those things with which we have to cope from others of a broader scope with which we're linked, because they don't amount to chores that keep us from our highest wish, like paying bills and cleaning floors, or seeing in and out of doors the most expensive fish to lay on plates before the rich. The things, that is, we do to earn our right to sleep above the ditch, not in it, and the right to pitch our dreams into a higher urn, like faith or art or something fine, betokening humanity. Some practice through which I divine what's crucial to me, what is mine, my style and manner of amenity. A smile that's only partly frown. We learn to make use of the lull, such times as I've described above, when moods suggest our lives as dull or abject, lost or overfull with love that hasn't ever met its match. It happens late in the afternoon, when suddenly we detach from claims that hold us to our patch. That promised boon we'll clinch if we remain in place and cultivate our trusted lot. But how we'd love some other space or air in which to breathe or trace some other breath or plot. We chew on this, we think it through. We change our seat, we shift our view. We take a walk and find some pew, tell deity that life's askew. I'd elsewhere rather be, would you? Returning as the sun goes down, the lull has ended in a draw, a smile that's only partly frown. We've pinned it with a verb or noun we utter or we keep within our jaw. Infinitesimal gradations, or our gumption. Infinitesimal gradations bear us through the core of art, whose ideational gestations foment there inside creation's heart. We enter through the lull, the void, that emptiness that I've described, with discomposure unalloyed, nor with religious feelings cloyed, nor grouped nor tribed, with anyone we'd like to claim as brethren in a common goal. We've simply fallen from our frame towards an unknown wall or flame. At least we've got our mole, our inner instinct, that's to say, that drives us to our finer points. The hand that we prefer to play, our own peculiar dismay, the energy that moves our joints, the image that we make, our build, the verve we fancy we convey, the tune that haunts us and its lilt, our efforts on a single stilt, our gumption as we brave our latest day. The junk with which we're rife. Complexity intensifies, approaching the noetic core. Aesthetic judgment trains its eyes and ears on every new surprise in store, as syntames smash, then recombine with affects wrested from our dreams, with aptitudes in slow decline, imagos that are not quite mine, with enthymemes constructed from recovered parts of logic, memory, and sense, with scraps from long-forgotten arts, their triumphs and their fits and starts, their hindrance, their expense. We face it with a certain ease, and this is all that we can do. There's so much in there that will please, the funny words, the spooky trees, the patterns that we must construe to bring this other world to life, to make it speak or give it wings, to rummage buried love and strife, to tag the junk with which we're rife. Behold, an altar world of other things. Marx's lost thesis on Feuerbach. In contracting reality, philosophers have always erred by forging drab normality from gross materiality. Marx stared down blankly at his German scrawl and killed the sentence with an X. 11 theses said it all. Except, he quipped, perhaps a call for better sex. But still he felt a certain lack which might be better left unwrit. He feared the thought would throw a crack of doubt into his stolid stack of theoretic wit. He sighed, just this and nothing more? I'll draft a final point in verse. Another option lies in store for bringing praxis to the fore. Our songs rehearse and re-rehearse what yesterday we were about, what Monday morning can't repeat, and what we've learned to do without. Art rips its object inside out. At times it turns the world up on its feet. Owl of Minerva. The owl of Minerva takes flight only as the dusk begins to fall. Hegel. Once the search has begun, something will be found. Eno and Schmidt. It's in the nature of a search that something always will get found. Minerva's up there on her perch to see we're not left in the lurch or drowned. She helps us find our history, whose subject, chained, released, and crowned, is sanctified with mystery and lyrical epistrophe to mark its bound, and greet itself at periods, shake hands, embrace, ascend a mound, from which to view the pyramids beneath those starry myriads with which our skies are gowned. And as our priests maintain the churches, crafting theorems to expound, Minerva glides to other perches, stimulating micro-searches held on high or lower ground. Some search for fair, though some for foul, concealing greed that would astound, and shaming honor with a scowl. They don't escape Minerva's owl, who sits and ponders as the world turns round. Cascades 2, or the colon and the ampersand, that plunge through us from distances and planets we will never know. We wonder what the instances that caused these keen resistances to flow, to wake us from our lethargy and spur us to the here and now with all the natal energy that scripts a starry liturgy upon our brow. Astrologers' phrenology, encoding what we'll think and say and do without apology, because it's all astrology transfigured through our clay. And that's the strategy, dear Jane, dear Thomas, that will get us by. The knowledge that our window pane conceals from us our cosmic stain, that comes to vision as we ply the symbols waiting in our hand to scan the pain of how and why, this colon and this ampersand. For when the eye is filled with sand, it cannot very well see past the sty. Riding it out. We count our days as past they glide, and temper mindlessness with doubt. We toss and turn from side to side. That's life at times, and we must ride it out. It stops and starts and carries us through floods and periods of drought. We clear a path and thereupon embark on some new marathon. We ride it out. At times we gaze in ecstasy as life emerges from its spout. Then as we grasp its tendency, it falls short of expectancy. We merely ride it out. Our satisfaction comes to us, though we're not sure what it's about. We smile and smirk and clap and cuss, and board a brightly colored bus, as arm in arm we ride it out. We're at our best when hearts are rife with plans to put all shame to rout, by questioning our hate, our strife. Yes, we'll agree that life is life, but we'll do more than simply ride it out. Approaching the penultimate. Approaching a penultimate that's always more than next to last. This truth is our emolument. We never can have all of it so fast. We never can have all we want, or all we sometimes think we need. Desires better somewhat gaunt. We drink not from some final font through which we're freed. I never can have all of you. You will not render me your whole. You lend me parts on which to chew. I give them back. Their loss I rue. Your soul is not my soul. You never can have all of God. You're only part of him, it seems. You're just a lump of clayey clod. The other parts spare not the rod and strike with moral enthymemes. In fact, we never have it all, for all is infinitely vast. It's why desire seems so small, although a never-ending haul. The last is never more than next to last. Time for verse. You'll know it when your final dime has fallen from your empty purse into a gutter filled with grime. You'll know it then. You'll know it's time for verse. And when the barbs slip through your pen and ink into an ugly curse or random shots of sloppy zen, you'll know it then and only then. It's time for verse. You'll know it when your love is weak and magnanimity is terse, and plenitude has passed its peak and nothing in it wants to speak. You'll know it's time for verse. And when the author hands you lines you've no desire to rehearse, when in contempt you glare at swines, avoiding detonated minds, that's when you'll know it's time for verse. You'll know it as you know yourself when things cannot get any worse, and hell is bursting on your shelf to suffocate your inner elf. You'll know precisely then it's time for verse. Finale, the Sutra of Innumerable Meanings. A plain near Holy Eagle Peak, with 80,000 bodhisattvas gathered there to hear him speak, with monks and griffins great and meek, and not a one who lacked awakening or hadn't garnered much esteem by casting off illusion's sling that keeps us wrapped in everything that seems supreme, but hides its own impermanence behind the wily aggregates of transitory sound and sense, and sundry states of ignorance that turn us on the spits of samsara, of birth and death, and universal happenstance, in which we bounce from breath to breath, or fall to evil like Macbeth, while bringing others to mischance. But now the holy eagle soared, and lent its shadow to the sheens that decked the vast enlightened horde, as through the Buddha slowly poured a cosmos filled with love and skillful means. Penultimate. A slew of strategies exist for bringing discourse to a close, for roping off each turn and twist, and dressing them in clouds and misty prose. We make an art of how we end, devoting energy and sweat to siphoning each wayward trend, and leaving little to defend or cause much fret. All endings make us somewhat sad. We know someday we'll start again. Although a respite won't be bad, we'll forfeit much of what we had when now retreats to then. This poem indeed has seen its day. It's raised its case, it's made its stands. Behold it in its stacked display of cinquains lean and cantos gay. The author now dusts off his hands, removes the scaffolding, the ropes, the signs of discontinued strands. He boxes up his unused tropes and looks up to the upper slopes that circumscribe this vale of shifting sands. In Verse and Dreams. Dear Mole, we part the best of friends. This canto marks abandonment. Escape will much relieve the bends developing as habit rends intent. Dismantling a recipe is not so easy as it seems, for form so often did agree with content as they mingled free in verse and dreams, in stanzas and in daily thought, so much so as to make us doubt the origins in which we're caught, forgetting that we bravely fought our way up through this spout. Some day, dear Mole, we'll stroll on back to have a look at what we made. We'll study fissures in the crack through which we paved our metric track, and call to mind each escapade that succored us along our way. We'll know this journey had to end, as all does that begins with clay, and ends in myth and roundelay. Until we meet again, dear Mole, dear friend. The Emerald Gong. Here is my story, here is my song, engraved like script on an emerald gong. I invite you now to think and fawn on the virtues of my assembled spawn. You'll note some faults in the breadth and brawn, though it's true to the lives it swept along. It intones their story, it sings their song. It savors of days now dead and gone. I've gathered this poem from dawn to dawn. Unravel it now on the lettery lawn. May it find in you a friendly throng. May you find in it a story, a song.